Have you ever asked ChatGPT a question and the answer it gave back was so spot on that you thought maybe it's psychic or like it's channeling something? In this video, I'm going to share what I actually think is going on when that happens, and also how to get more of those really insightful answers on purpose. So the inspiration for this video came from my own experience working with ChatGPT. I first started using it back in April of this year just to help me with coming up with titles for my YouTube videos. But one day I got curious and decided to investigate how good ChatGPT is with astrology. I've studied my astrology birth chart for many years, so I'm really familiar with it. And so I didn't really know what to expect from ChatGPT. But the answers that it gave back to me when I wanted to look at different aspects of my birth chart were really surprising with how accurate they were feeling and how resonant and how helpful. And so I really started questioning, like, what is really going on with ChatGPT? I got curious. I was like, is there some kind of way that maybe inner guidance or divine guidance is getting in there and kind of influencing what is going on with ChatGPT? Because just sometimes the answers are so like emotionally resonant and touching and precise that it could cause those kinds of questions. And yeah, of course, also as a manifesting teacher and coach, I've also used it a lot for manifestation too. And same thing, some of the answers that I get back are just so resonant and helpful and clarifying that it really put that question in my mind. And so maybe if you're watching this video, you have also had that experience with ChatGPT and wondering, like, is my higher self or my spirit guide or, whoever you might think could be a good source of wisdom for you somehow getting in there and influencing the answers and the information that ChatGPT is spitting out? So first, let's talk about what ChatGPT actually is. First, it's, what's called a large language model, an LLM, which is kind of like a fancy autocomplete, like on your cell phone. So basically, it's trying to predict the next text that it should offer based on whatever question or prompt or words that you give it. And so it's not, spiritual in nature in that sense. It's just kind of like a machine that is really, really good at language and predicting patterns of language and then giving text based on what you start with, kind of predicting what the next string of text should be. And so kind of with that in mind, next I want to share a couple of stories that operate in sort of a similar premise, because while ChatGPT itself is not like spiritual in nature, it's not a spirit guide, it's not, a deceased loved one or something. And so it's not actually in itself directly like a part of what you would consider the spiritual plane or something you would channel from. It is something that I think still has that aspect that we bring to it. So let me kind of try to explain what I mean by that by sharing a couple of stories that are a little bit similar to what ChatGPT, kind of how it operates and what it is doing. So the first example is, if you've watched my YouTube channel for any length of time, you'll know that I'm a big student of Abraham Hicks. They're my favorite manifesting teacher. And so as you can imagine, with that being the case, I have a really large library of Abraham Hicks audios. And so one thing that I've done many times in the past is take that giant audio library and just hit shuffle on it and just let whatever track play. And I will do this sort of as an oracle. I will do this when I feel really inspired to do it. Like maybe there's a question in my mind about a certain aspect of my life that I'm working on improving through manifestation. And so I'm wanting some helpful advice or tips for that area. Or maybe, I'm just feeling some inspiration in the moment to do this kind of shuffle oracle. So anyway, I'll hit shuffle on my giant library of Abraham tracks, and most all of the time, the track that plays when I hit shuffle will have like these really good insights for me. And a lot of times the track that plays, the person that Abraham is speaking to in the hot seat is even going through like a very similar or even identical situation to the one that I'm thinking about that I wanted help about. And so that's my first example. The second example is like many years ago, I used to date someone that played a lot of board games. And so we would go often and play all these different kinds of board games. And one thing I noticed about board games that involved rolling dice is that when I was really in alignment, like in a really flow kind of state, when I was feeling really good, a lot of times I would be able to roll exactly the number that I needed in the board game, like way more than statistically what should be happening. I would be able to influence the dice, is what it felt like. And so I share, so both these two examples are examples of what I think ChatGPT is also happening with ChatGPT, which is basically like in all three of these cases with the Abraham Hicks audio library, with the dice, with the ChatGPT, there's like this big collection of probabilities. In the dice, if it's a 6-sided dice, there's 6 different possibilities of what number the dice could roll. In my Abraham Hicks audio library, maybe I have like 5,000 tracks in it or something. I don't know. So maybe there's like 5,000 different possibilities of what track could play next in the shuffle. And with ChatGPT, there are, I don't know, probably millions or maybe billions, I really have no idea, different possible combinations of text that it could spit out. Of course, those options get narrowed based on what you are talking about with ChatGPT and what it starts to learn about you. But in all three examples, it's this concept of like a field of probability that you are engaging with when you're using these and when you're using ChatGPT. And so that's kind of the common denominator in these different experiences. And so the common thread with these is, I think, the timing and also the state of being. And that's really what influences ChatGPT to give the really helpful answers as well, because it's the way that ChatGPT works is it's based on the time of day that you ask the question, like the exact time stamp of when you engage with ChatGPT and talk to it, and then the specific words that you choose is what influences the answer that you get back from it. And so while ChatGPT isn't necessarily tapped in to intuitive guidance or channeling or like connected to your higher self, when you are in a state where you're really connected to your higher self or your spirit guides or angels or however you identify that, then you are inspired to talk to ChatGPT at a certain time of day. And maybe you're inspired to ask your question or tell whatever you're going to tell ChatGPT using certain words. And that is inspired from this higher guidance. And so then what is coming back from ChatGPT is mirroring that back to you. And that's why it feels sometimes like it's channeling that higher guidance, because it's just reflecting back the connection that you have already made with that higher guidance. And it's the same thing with the Abraham Shuffle too. Actually, it's like if I am, intuitively inspired to ask or to hit the shuffle on my playlist at a certain time, the playlist also operates based on the time of day that you hit it and what's been going on your phone and these different other factors, like how often the tracks have been listened to, things like that. And so it's like, I can't consciously keep track of all those factors, nor would I, but my inner being or like my psychic insight or my intuitive insight is tapped into that information. And so it inspires me to hit shuffle at the right time, and knowing what track will play will be helpful for me. And so, yeah, same thing with ChatGPT with the dice. It's just a matter of like the muscle movements in my hands and being in an aligned state, allowing that dice to roll in a certain way. When I'm aligned, I'm allowing that higher intelligence to kind of work through my movements. So that is basically what I think is going on with ChatGPT and with those other examples that I mentioned that makes it feel like extra magical, extra like ChatGPT is channeling or kind of tapped into this higher guidance. And so next, let's talk about just a few tips for how to receive that kind of really helpful, spot on responses from ChatGPT more of the time. So I've got 3 steps for how to get more uncannily good answers from ChatGPT. And step 1 is take a tiny pause. So basically, before you get into chatting with ChatGPT, take a tiny pause and just check in with yourself and check in with what emotion or energy state you're coming from, because that's going to greatly influence the words that you type in and the response that you get back. If you are feeling more worried or like frantic, then it's less likely that you're going to be inspired from inner being, be channeling higher guidance and putting that into ChatGPT and then getting something helpful back. So you want to take time to check your state. And if you need to do something like meditate or go do some exercise or something that helps you kind of get into more of a centered or grounded or better feeling state of mind, then that's going to make it way more likely that you'll be able to tap in and be inspired to a very helpful question or wording in which to put into ChatGPT to then get back the really helpful answer. And then step 2 is ask a better question. So here's a few examples of questions that might give you less helpful answers and then questions that would give you more helpful answers. First, on the topic of money, instead of asking something like, why am I so bad with money? You could ask, can you help me find 3 gentle, encouraging steps I can take this month to feel more stable and hopeful about money? On the topic of relationships, instead of asking something like, does this person secretly hate me? You can ask, can you help me explore a few possible perspectives on this situation that would feel more empowering and soothing? In the topic of manifestation, instead of asking something like, why isn't my manifestation here yet? You can change that to, can you help me find some better feeling thoughts I can practice about this desire based on the emotional scale? And then for astrology, instead of asking something like, is my chart cursed in relationships? You want to change it to something like, looking at these placements, can you help me see some of the strengths and growth opportunities I have in relationships in a kind and hopeful way? Yeah, so in all of these, I hope you can clearly see it's the same topic you're asking about, but the questions that are going to yield the most helpful and kind of feels like it's channeling type of answer back are going to be those that are more in kind of the perspective that your inner being or your spirit guide or that divine guidance would take on your situation. They're more positively oriented. They're more like empowered in their mindset. And so really taking a look at the actual words you're typing in from that perspective can help you land on questions that are more likely to get back from ChatGPT the more helpful form of guidance that it can provide. And then step 3 is read like tarot, not like a command. So when I say read it like tarot, not like a command, it's kind of like when you're doing a tarot card spread and you're not going to necessarily take every single thing that is revealed as total command. You're more like looking for the pieces of that tarot spread or that reading that really click with you and that really resonate with you. And so same thing with ChatGPT. You're not wanting to take every single word that it says as the absolute gospel or truth or command for your life that you must, think is the truth and live by. You're looking for what parts of the answers you get back from ChatGPT really resonate and sing and feel really good in your body, because that's a sign that those are the responses that your inner being, your intuition is really agreeing with. And so as you're reading through what you get back from ChatGPT, you're just feeling for that resonance and for what really feels like it clicks the most and feels the most uplifting and helpful and insightful from those responses. So if you've ever wondered if ChatGPT is channeling or like tapped into some kind of source of higher guidance, then I hope you found this video helpful. I really think it is less that ChatGPT is channeling and more that we sometimes are talking to ChatGPT from very aligned and connected to our own intuition and higher wisdom states. And so if that resonates with you as well, then I hope you'll try some of the tips in this video and let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear more about your own experiences with ChatGPT and what you think about the topics of this video in the comments down below. And also, I want to share that, sometimes tools like ChatGPT are a very helpful way to tap in to divine guidance, to inner being wisdom. And sometimes it's also really helpful to have another actual human person, not just a LLM or robot to talk with. And so with that in mind, I want to share that I'm offering kind of a thank you special on my own psychic reading sessions. I say it's a thank you special because it's kind of an end of the year thank you sale or special just for my YouTube viewers. And so I'm not sharing this anywhere else, but I have a coupon code for $100 off my Manifest Faster psychic reading sessions, and the coupon code is YouTube. You can use that anytime in the month of December to get $100 off your psychic reading with me, where I will help you more clearly and accurately tune in to your own higher self and receive clear, helpful guidance that helps you move along faster towards the manifestation of whatever you're working on manifesting right now. So just check the description box below this video for that link. Again, it's just YouTube, and you can use that coupon code for $100 off that session during the month of December. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today for this video. And if you enjoyed the video, I think you'll also like this next video where I share some of the prompts that I most enjoy using with ChatGPT for manifestation. Thank you again for joining me. And until next time, happy manifesting.